our masculinity, it's not accidental, or our traits aren't accidental, excuse me. Like God made us this way and he did it for a purpose. So then taking that masculinity, to be a man, right? So to be a man, that's making a conscious decision to use our masculinity and masculine traits as tools for good, right? So use those impulses and traits to better ourselves, better our family, better our community.
Welcome to Authentic Conversations. I'm your host, Ryan James Miller, and I believe the way to freedom, fulfillment, and success ultimately comes by living as the most authentic version of yourself. If you're ready to live the life you've dreamed of, you're in the right place. All right, what up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am pumped, man. I mean, we are just doing good things. I've been getting a lot of really good feedback from you guys on this particular season. We're, 30 or so episodes into season 2. We've been talking to so many guys, a couple of ladies, but mostly guys, just on this topic of manhood and masculinity. And it is something that seems like it should be so clear, and yet there is so much confusion. There's so much question. There's really a lot of struggle. And so I've loved that while I would align in some way, shape, or fashion with everybody we've talked to, everyone's got a little bit of a different perspective. And I think that's what's really helping us to just continue to shape who we are as men, who we want to be as men, and how we want to lead this world into this next season of life, because we all know that we're not super pumped on. Most of us are not pumped on the one that we're living right now. So with that, I have today Gabe Wander. Gabe was introduced to me through a mutual friend. We had a short conversation here not too long ago, and I'm pumped to dig into the same topic with him. But for now, Gabe, what's up, man? Welcome.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Honored to be on your podcast. I've listened to it a bit here lately, and man, what you're doing is great. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. And Gabe's already got it going on, because if you're watching this, you see it. But if you're not, he's got all this cool paraphernalia behind him, American flag. He's got helmet back there, glove, just all this like dude stuff. Plus he's in the great state of Texas. So that makes him a little bit more of a man than most everybody else out there. So he's got it. He looks physically fit. It's just all going on already. It's so good.
Yeah, it was. We were so fortunate. We moved here to Texas 5 years ago from Seattle, or outside of Seattle, when I retired from the Army. So the timing was perfect. Family is flourishing here in Texas. That's great grandpa Howard's glove back there. When we found out that he was left-handed, because all my kids are left-handed, and we had no idea where it came from. So my father gave me that glove, so we knew they weren't from the milkman.
It all makes sense now.
All makes sense now. Yeah, we're gonna display that glove.
Man, what a relocation! From Seattle, which is just its own world, right? It is just its total own world up there, to Texas, which is its own world. And you said that you're in kind of like a more rural area. So I do actually have a question before we even get into the real question. So how has that transition been? Because obviously you were in the military, but that's just a busy city. It's really high paced. There's a lot going on. And now you're kind of chilling. Maybe not life isn't chilling, but like pace does.
Right.
So how did that go?
So when I retired from the Army in 2015, we were in Washington State. I was finished up out there. We bought 15 acres, what we thought was rural. It was a 30-minute ferry ride to Seattle. And it was nice. And we quickly realized that just the politics in Seattle were going so far left that while we used to, as a family, all go to Seattle on the ferry for a game or something, we stopped doing that and made it only my wife and I, because just too much stuff going on there, the homeless, the drugs, the gangs, and everything. And then I would always conceal carry when I went. And then it was, how many extra rounds can I bring? And then it was no wife, only me for business. And then we just stopped going. And those politics started moving over to the peninsula that we were at. And we'd come over to Texas to visit friends and family. And no matter where we were, Midland was the turning point, actually. Went to visit some friends over there, went on a little deer hunt. And when we were getting back on the plane, small little airport, sagebrush is blowing by. And I was like, I feel like I'm leaving home to go back to what we had, a beautiful property and, mountain air. And I felt like we were leaving home. So we had 1.5 kids at the time. Wife was pregnant, and we decided if we're going to make it happen, if we wanted to be in Texas, then let's do it now. And we came out here and bought a little bit of land, 4 acres, not 15, because, it's Texas near Austin, and it's kind of hard to get more than that. But it's great. We have 4 kids here now, under 10, an older 23-year-old daughter who went to college here in Texas with us, and she's a nurse here now. And it's just, Life is great out here. So we got a little bit of ribbing from our buddies in Seattle. They were like, hey, you're kind of doing a lateral move because you're moving to Austin. But a leftist in Texas is more moderate in the Pacific Northwest. And we fit in great out here, especially out here a little bit west. And even, not all of our friends think the same way as us, which is fine. But we make friends really fast. And we're personable people, and just the people in Texas, just amazing compared to the Pacific Northwest and just the angry culture, So, anyways, long-winded answer, but
I really appreciate that. I mean, obviously, it gives people a lot of insight into just kind of, a bit of insight into who you are. I think one thing that you said that I really appreciate, you kind of said it's like, a leftist in Texas, I would say is still like, the most far right moderate in California, same thing. But what I really appreciate about Austin, and, it started to see some challenges. I know you're just outside the city, but, it started to see some challenges with its own overpopulation and homelessness, and they're starting to see some things there. But what I like there is that even though there's a variety of politics, which then just breeds a variety of culture and people, that for the most part, people are pretty kind and generous to one another about kind of where they come from and who they are. And I think that that's just kind of the culture and nature of the South and, in Texas, whereas when you're up in the Northwest, down here in the Southwest now, it's just so agenda and tribal driven that you just don't get that generosity and consideration for other people's thought. Right.
And they're just anecdotally standing in line with somebody. And it's nothing out here to get in a conversation with somebody. I mean, even during COVID, when everybody was clamoring for whatever food and such, right? I mean, there was ladies, they were like, oh, hey, you were looking for this. I saw that. And, I got this, whatever, bottle of something for you. You would never get that. You would never get into a conversation with somebody or just, hey, how are you doing? Or what stuck out to my eldest daughter when she moved out here for college was picked her up from the airport, and we're going through the turnstile or the driving out. The guy was, young 20-something-year-old guy. And he was like, have a great day. Hi, and a few sentences. And that made such an impact on her in the first 5 minutes of being here in Texas. And she was like, I'm not going back to Seattle. And she stayed here, and it's great for us. But yeah,
that's so good. That's so good. All right. That's some good background. It's a good history. Okay, so you've heard, I'm sure, me ask a couple of guys this question. If you've listened to a couple of episodes, everybody kind of knows what's coming. And so for you, when you think about manhood and masculinity, obviously, even those are kind of two different terms there, but what comes to mind? How do you think about that? How do you define that?
So the first thought was that when I was hearing you asking other folks about this in your podcast, that it sucks that we even have to ask this question, right? I mean, like 10 to 20 years ago, what is a man? It was pretty obvious statement, right? So, but I've given this some thought, not because of the podcast, but, writing a little children's book and such, but to be a man to me. So first you have to be biologically male. So this is what you're born with, right? Your bone density, your muscle mass, your male genitals, all that stuff, right? And then recognize that males have innate masculine traits, and those come from hormones, testosterone, right? So like physical strength, pain tolerance, ambition, competition, risk-taking, adventure, or thirst for adventure, all those things, right? So our masculinity, it's not accidental, or our traits aren't accidental, excuse me. God made us this way, and he did it for a purpose. Mm-hmm. So then taking that masculinity, to be a man, right? So to be a man, that's making a conscious decision to use our masculinity and masculine traits as tools for good, right? So use those impulses and traits to better ourselves, better our family, better our community. Then that's how I think of manliness or to being a man essentially, and how that kind of masculinity.
You know, it's super funny. I mean, is first of all that we have to like define, male. Funny is probably actually not the word that I would choose. But in all of the conversations I've had, you're actually the first person to say that, which I just love because it's just such a tiptoe, right? I mean, people are so. And again, a lot of times it really is coming from a place of empathy or consideration for other people. And they don't want to just come right out and blast people. But it's like, we have to start on this common ground. Like we can try and polish manhood and masculinity, but if you don't got a penis, like you just don't fit, right? Like it's just, we can't start.
Right. And there's other categories that don't fit in that, right? Yeah. So if you were not born with the penis, it doesn't matter if you have masculine traits because you're taking hormones. It doesn't count. You're not a man. If you have a son, I have sons. They're born with the penis. They will have testosterone, right? But they're not a man yet. They can't use those masculine traits to better themselves and their community and the world. They're young men, but you wouldn't say like, hey man, my 6-year-old, he's a man. Like he's not a man yet. He will be, but there's starting on the common ground. Like number one, be a male, be a biological male. I think is pretty important.
Well, okay, and this brings up another thing that I heard you allude to, and then you qualified it there, even when you were talking about your boys, which I think is so helpful too. So when we think of biologically male, that's just like as clear cut as can be. Where we start to get into gray, and I'm not talking about like culturally gray today, but even for us that are seeking to become men and exercise our manhood, there is some gray area because, some people would say, okay, well, you become a man when, and it's like when you turn 18 or when you do this, but even that is, we have been challenged, like the generation kind of previous to this, where now they're calling into question sex, biological sex. The generation before, we were really struggling with a lot of these younger men that weren't exercising their manhood and definitely weren't doing it for good. There was the generation of, I'm sitting on the couch, I'm living with my parents until I'm 42 years old. I'm just doing whatever to get by. These poor women that were out there were looking for just a guy to, a good dude to marry, to build a family with, to take care of them or to support them. And they couldn't find any. And so I think this is something that we've been struggling with. And so interestingly enough, this really connects to, how long did you serve in the military?
20 years in a month. And
you said in the Army?
In the Army. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, you have to be at least 18 years old, 17 years old to get. So you enter in, and for you, did you feel like you were a man previous to going into the military, or did you feel like there was this period or this moment or whatever that you started to feel like finally, okay, now I really feel like I'm a man? Because I feel like that's a place where, and again, this has been lost on society today too, but that's a place that really develops men,
Oh, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. So no, I know everyone has a different story of how or why they joined the military, the ones that joined. Right. And so mine was not that. So mine, from an earlier age, 11, 12 years old, I would see my grandfather's medals in his office and, just the pride that it gave him when he talked about it. But then that just kind of disappeared because my upbringing was a little different. Right. So I was living in a van on my own, going through high school, 5-6 different high schools, and graduated and decided, hey, I'm going to earn and pay for college via the Army, right? So I enlisted. I was 17 years old, got a signature from one of my parents. I was a private combat medic, jumping ahead, moved up the ranks to a sergeant, and eventually earned a degree and an officer in Joint Special Operations Command. But why I joined is different than why I stayed, right? So although I joined as a lost teenager, but I remained because I grew to love God and my country and my fellow soldiers, right? So I had some great mentors in the military. I first pushed against it because I was a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid, and I didn't like these men telling me what to do. But that's what the Army's for. They break you down to a level, emotionally, physically, everyone looks the same. They shave your head, all that stuff, right? We can get into more of what the military is doing now later, but they do that, and then they kind of build you back up, right? And so with discipline and responsibility, I mean, I remember like it was a day when I was just what I thought was being beat down. And I knew, I was like, I am an intelligent person, and I am probably smarter than half the people here, but I don't outrank anybody. So nothing's happening, right? And then one day someone saw something in me and gave me some responsibility, and that plus the mentorship and obviously trial and error on my part, I started becoming a man, I would say in my young 20s. 21, 22 is when I actually felt pride in what I was doing, patriotism, and I actually liked being in the Army. Not that it was just a job and I can't wait to get out, or, do my job and go with my buddies afterwards and just raise hell, essentially, right? So I finished out my 20-year career, a little worse for the wear, but with a group of people that became much more than a community. They were my family, and I credit so much of how I grew as a man from the military.
Man, that is so awesome. And so what do you feel for you was the beginning of the mindset shift? So obviously, again, very different today, which I do want to get to, but, very different today, how the military is approaching everything today. But part of it definitely break you down, just like, you are bare, and build you up. But what kind of mindset shifts did you feel like you experienced that helped you to realize that I don't want to be this person that I came in as anymore? I want to leave as something so much better.
There was, let's see, to answer that question, the shift for me professional wise, and I think it kind of all goes together with how I felt about, I would feel prideful, or feel pride, to wear the uniform and the boots and everything that great people before me have worn. So I guess it was essentially around 9/11. And so this time happened where, so I was enlisted, so sergeant, right? And then I had just finished college, and I was getting ready to go to San Antonio to go through officer basic course, right? So it was actually, my report date was September 21st. 9/11 happened on the 11th, right? So I was actually at home for a 2-week leave. And, when you're an officer, you're a professional. Like, this is like, there's no like, oh, I'm going to sign for 4 more years. Would you like to sign for 4 more? It's, you are in until you resign your commission. Then you're out. Like, that's what it is, right? So for me, it was kind of a turning point. That was my mental shift from the 17-year-old private of yesteryear, having some fun and seeing the world. And I had 3 credit cards for 4 rims and things like that. Like, now I was like a professional with a chance to actually make a difference. And so I had a plan, and my plan was go to anesthesia school, get into JSOC, which is not an organization that you can ask to join. It's just proximity, put yourself in that place, which is why I went to Bragg, and see if you get invited, right? So I had my plans. I was like, I'm going to actually try to make a difference. So finished anesthesia school. I ended up getting recruited into JSOC, and that's where my worldview changed. And so there's no better way to cement the greatness of America in your mind than deploying around the world, seeing the best that the world has to offer, and it still pales in comparison to the U.S. So anyways, I kind of like jumped ahead in my little career there, but it was right around that time where it was, there's not a job anymore. This is a profession, and you are a professional. You are an Army officer who has the extra duty of doing anesthesia for some of the greatest door kickers out there. But you're an officer and conduct yourself as such. And I felt a lot more weight on my shoulders. But I was walking amongst giants and seeing, you kind of feed off each other, and everybody has their demons and everybody has their stuff that they're working with, but collectively feeding off each other, and just in the community of the guys and gals in that arena, it was made it easier to be around those good people.
Dude, you are the guy that this generation needs so badly, because I mean, the way that you said, walking amongst giants and being so proud to wear the uniform and to represent this country. And we know that there is tons of trash happening all around us, and our government's a part of it. Other entities are a part of it. We haven't chosen to fight every war the right way, and there is messes to be made and have been made in all different kinds of places. But the fact that you continue to so proudly speak about the country that you served, saying, like going out everywhere, seeing the best that the world has to offer and realizing that it still pales in comparison. Like we bitch and complain so much about the country that we live in. And again, there's good reason to bitch and complain about a lot of what we're seeing happen, but we still live in the best country this world has or will probably ever see until God returns. And so it's like, it breaks my heart to see so many people that disregard just how amazing this country is and just how amazing the men and women are that have gone to fight for this country. So maybe that was a whole monologue right there for me just to say thank you for being that way. And I pray to God that you are just using a megaphone to go out and speak that to people all around the world or around the country.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's humbling to have done that. And yeah, I mean, like if you use the litmus test of America, right? Open every single border. I'm not an open border advocate, but open every border and see the flow patterns. Like, where is everybody going to go? Even if they say, well, I hate America, et cetera, open all the borders and where is everybody going to want to go? It's here. This is a great country, which is why everybody who says, if this, then I leave, if this, then that, everyone's still here, and because it's amazing. And I would never want to be anywhere else.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Okay. Gosh, there's so many things, but I do want to kind of keep a track of thought going, because I think it's helpful for right now. And I want to come back to some of the present day military, because we talked about that a little bit before and we were having some fun. But you are writing a children's book, and I haven't been talking too much about what my guests are doing nowadays because everybody's talking about that stuff. But I think it is extremely interesting that a guy like you is writing a children's book. And so what's it about? What birthed that child of an idea? And what are you hoping to accomplish as the result?
So what birth or the genesis that will birth this book. So after my first deployment with JSOC, I got married when one of the docs on the team introduced me to his daughter, which was amazing. So we emailed for the remainder of that deployment. Yeah. And frankly, it was a great way to court, right? I had never seen her yet, just pictures, but without any distractions or pressure. We talked about our hopes, dreams, religion, thoughts on raising kids, marital roles, traditional roles. And we fell in love with before even seeing each other. And we're actually married 2 months after we met. So anyways, get married. Just before another deployment, she became pregnant with our first son, and I go deploy the nightly missions. And then I combined with the lingering effects of a parachute injury that I got, that made me really acutely aware of my own mortality. And for the first time ever, I feared not coming home. So I began to write what I'd wish to pass on to my unborn son should I never get to see him again. Not just life lessons, but also tangible actions that he could incorporate into his everyday life to help mold him into a good man and help him flourish. So then I added to that list with every deployment and pregnancy until I safely retired back in 2015. And so now I have 3 sons. The eldest, he's 10 now. So a couple of years ago, I decided it was time to gather all my ideas or everything that I was thinking about and assemble them in a way that they could have an impact on him and, my little guys essentially every day. The book just started turning out so well in the illustrator that I got. And then it just kind of slowly, it wasn't, I'm going to go be an author and make a bunch of money off of this. It was trying to get a message out there first, just so my kids could have something. And then it just, it got picked up by a publisher, and it's doing great, but yeah, so, boys, right? So like, there's a lot of people in this space, right? Other people like masculinity and becoming a man, right? So my mission here, like the more people doing this, the better, right? I'm not reinventing any wheel. I'm not doing anything different, but it's relevant to me. I care about it. So I'm trying to do something about it. But so my mission here is to pass down manhood to the next generation, to the young boys, by encouraging them from a young age how to embrace their masculinity in healthy and productive ways, harness their innate aggression and ambition, and provide them tangible actions that they can incorporate in their everyday life to help them grow, and flourish into men, leaders, heroes. So that's where the children's book is. But if we can influence and encourage boys from a young age how to be a man, that's ideal, right? Because getting and staying on the right path when you're young is far superior than trying to correct for a bad trajectory when you're older. So I guess it's more simply, right, good choices when you're young will sort of give you that buffer, give you less of a chance for failure later on in life. And so that's, it's just a bunch of, I don't say fancy words, but it's just more words than everybody knows. Is you're trying to raise good kids. You're trying to raise healthy kids. And in this society right now where masculinity and males are under attacks literally every day, it's even more relevant now,
Yeah. I mean, gosh, that's so, is the book published?
It is. Yes. It came out last August or so.
Okay.
Maintain eye contact while shaking hands. A message to boys on being a man. It's a great book.
Man. Okay. So right Amazon, in the middle right now, I'm going to right in the middle of, I'm going to say this. If you're listening right now and you're like, I got to have that book, first 4 people that send an email to Ryan@RyanJamesMiller.com, I will buy it and I will send it to you. So if you heard to this point and you're actually paying attention, you can have a free copy, but you just got to email me and I'll make sure to get you one. We'll put a link into the show notes for anybody else that wants to buy one after that. Okay. So you have published the book, which, by the way, I love this because I'm a dad to 2 daughters. My daughters are 20 and 13. One's in a pretty serious relationship. We think she'll probably get married. That's the 20-year-old, thankfully. But for me, so my oldest daughter, her boyfriend, great kid, so smart, hard worker, but he's basically grown up without a father since the age of 7. His dad was killed, and you can see that. And I'm trying to do everything that I can in the last 3 years, and will continue to do so as long as he's in our life, to be that influence, not because he's a bad kid and trying to turn him around, but just trying to help equip him with things that his mom never could. And that's not to take away from his mom. I mean, I was raised by a single mom for a lot of my life, and they do the best they can, but there's just such a gap. So, for a dad to 2 daughters, I am praying for a generation that is investing into these younger boys and young men, because our daughters are going to suffer the consequence of these idiots that are being raised by idiots. I mean, it's terrible.
Absolutely. That's amazing that you're doing that for him. That's great. I mean, we all know, right, the importance of a father in a child's life is undeniable, as is their fundamental need to raise good men, because good men become good fathers, right? And so as we get older, if we don't have someone giving us or guiding us down that path, how are you going? How do you know what to do? How do you know what you are supposed to do as a man, as a father, as a husband? Yeah, what are the rules and everything for that, I mean, we as men, we have to choose to be a father every day and intentionally become better ourselves so we can become better fathers. We bring our talents to work, right? We bring our talents to the gym, bring them as a husband, bring them as a father. And, boys want to be like their father or their role model, right? So, but it's our job to make sure that's a worthy pursuit for them. So it's daunting, and I am far from perfect or mediocre. Sometimes I think I'm right of mediocre. So that's great. But I mean, gosh, it's a challenge every day, and I pray every night. And one of the first things that I pray, I thank God for my blessings, and I pray to make me a better husband and to make me a better father. And then specifically what I'm trying to work on. And then I go down and pray for the, other things that are, on my mind, but it always starts with that. And it's comforting, and I actually fall asleep every time I pray. And so I make sure I'm not laying down when I do it, or I try to, because I get such a comforting feeling when I do that, because I feel that that's what we need to do. And, I know you're a man of faith. I was raised Christian, actually Jewish, was born and raised Jewish and married a beautiful Jewish woman. And we are raising our kids in the Jewish faith, which is essentially, it's all the same book, right? And so we had Judeo-Christian values, and we differ on a few things, but I mean, we are godly people here, and we pray and we raise our kids in healthy and productive ways, right? So my goals as a man, as a father, right? I guess it can all be boiled down to two things. One is to take care of my wife no matter what, and let my kids and community see that relationship, and then raise godly children. And if you can kind of put everything in those two categories, everything else just kind of falls into place there.
So good, man. What I really appreciate about that very last statement is, so I was a pastor for many years, and I was often counseling young couples that were getting ready to be married, or even couples post-marriage. Maybe they were having some challenges. And one of the things that I would always say to them was, you have to put your marriage before your kids. And it's really hard for people to wrap their heads around, because understandably, these kids are helpless for a long period of time. And you're like, what do you mean? Like, these are the most important. They came from me. And I'm like, yes, they are. And they need you, and they depend on you. But if you don't put your marriage first, everything else suffers. And we see that when husbands and wives start to elevate their kids above their spouse, and you start to see that breakdown in the relationship, which then ends up affecting, as you said, the kids. It's just this trickle down effect. So I love that so much. Okay, so one more question there in the book, and then we'll have a little bit of fun. But what is some of the feedback that you've gotten from people, maybe even complete strangers, as they've read that book?
So let's see. One of the most recent ones that I just read, it is a stranger who wrote a review on it. He said that his son would swell with pride when he would get to a page that was like, "Hey, I'm already doing that. Like, I'm a man," and he'd read a few more things and get to another page, and he just beamed, And so this is a guy that I've never met. I don't know him. Purchased the book and wrote a review, and it was just the most recent one that I read, and that struck me, because you don't have to be perfect as boys, as men, right? But still strive every day, strive to do something better. And if you don't have everything down, but you did one thing, great. Like, we say that in the gym, right? Get a little bit better than yesterday, or whatever you're doing, right? And same thing with being a man, just do a little better. So and globally, though, it's been amazing feedback. We have friends who buy 15 of them to give to people who have new kids. It's in the library now here in my local town, and it's it's great. I thought I'd get more pushback on it, because it's very direct. It says, you're a man, and it starts out with, being a godly man, and then all the tangible things to do, and you're not a woman, and and it's in beautiful pictures, and easy to read and stuff. It's a great picture book for kids, and for the young kids, a read with for like 5 to 7 year olds, and independent reading for 8 and up. So it kind of like fills the whole thing there. But anyways, I thought I'd get more pushback because of the type of book it is, but so far not, which is great. That's awesome. Or maybe it's just not getting out there enough. But either way, it's good stuff.
And I'm going to expect the humble answer, and so that's fair. But I want a real good one. How does it make you feel knowing that something that was birthed out of just a way for you to write to your child has turned into something that's impacting and influencing an entire generation of people?
Yes, it's very humbling. I mean, getting in front of a camera or on a podcast is not my forte, but to get the word out there, I'm happy to do it. And I love doing this and meeting great people and stuff. But no, it is a source of pride. We had some buddies who had a birthday party the other day, and they said, "Hey, can you just bring a book for our kid for his birthday?" And absolutely, I was going to do that anyways, but yes, and that someone would actually buy what I wrote, or complete strangers, or there's some. I didn't know that Goodreads was a thing, and people are like lining up saying that they're, whatever Goodreads is for. It's humbling. It's great. And I hope just everybody gets on the bandwagon, for young boys, for young men, for grown men, and just continue this whole push, because the left pushes so much. And it feels, maybe just like now that I'm more involved in this space and thinking about it and reading about it and listening to it. But I mean, you can tell me more probably, but I mean, it does feel like there's a bigger swell of pushback, and just a bigger, just a bigger pushback against what the left is doing and how they're trying to just indoctrinate and with our kids and men, but change masculinity, which is, you can't. It's not new.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
Yeah. I mean, my answer is going to be probably a bit unfortunate to hear, and for all the guys that are out there to some degree, but I think what we started to see is, and I would say this probably happened around the time when they started forcing COVID mandates on kids. And I don't care where people stand. You get vaccinated if you want. I didn't. I've been very public about it, but I don't judge a single person. Everyone has their own decision and right to do so, and I think that's fair and wise. At the same time, I think what we saw was when the schools particularly started to force vaccine mandates on the kids, I think it was the women that really had enough. I think that it was a lot of the moms that finally decided that they were just going to take matters into their own hands and start speaking up. I mean, some of the most outspoken channels that I was finding on social media were from women. And I think that the men are finally starting to catch up to that, to stand alongside their wives, or to finally lead their wives in saying, like, I mean, the mom's typically the one, again, that's involved in school. Mom's typically the one, and except for a few things, like involved in the sport more consistently a lot of the time. And so I think dads have taken a back seat for so long that they're realizing, like, if I'm not involved in my kid's life from day one, my kids are in trouble. And so I think that started to swell, that then also with guys like Rogan and Jocko, Ben Shapiro, a couple of other public figures that were out there, like really calling the men to be like, yo, you got to get a voice, because we can't just continue to watch this happen. And what I appreciated about Rogan is, I mean, he is very left of where I am socially, politically, fiscally, culturally, but he was kind of this sound bridge between a lot of these people that weren't sure kind of where they stood in this whole thing. And so I do think that we're starting to see a lot of men raise up and be like, enough is enough. You for a while it was, you can do what you want as long as you kind of just, leave me alone. But now, I mean, up until, just recently, the drag show for the little kids in Texas was just like, holy shit. Like, what have we done? Like, I mean, again, as an adult, do what you want, be what you want, but like, we're just not going to do this, and we're not going to stand for this. And so I think that finally it's starting to swell up. What I pray, though, is that though we're frustrated and I get frustrated, though we're angry and we get angry, that does not spill over into us irresponsibly addressing the issues. Like, sometimes we do have to physically fight, and I'm for that. I'm a proud gun owner for a reason, right? At one point, it may have to be utilized, but I just hope that it doesn't turn into this, like just an act of aggression that doesn't get the point across and actually just makes matters worse. So I'm hopeful, but at the same time, I'm just concerned. Obviously, this political race for the next couple of years going into 2024 is going to be quite interesting too. And so we'll see what happens. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I was just going to add to that. I mean, your propensity, or males, or a man's propensity for violence, that's something that we're born with, right? And so it's I want to solve every argument with a fist. but you can't, right? And even the more sophisticated arguments, obviously you can't. And so that's part of being a man is controlling that aggression and harnessing it, right? You were born with the ability to be a beast, right? But choose not to be. Choose when it's appropriate to be, when to put on your tie and have a conversation or be a gentleman, So yeah, it's part of being a man, right?
So good, man. Okay, last question. This is kind of like, we had a little bit of fun with this before, but in our first conversation, but we did talk about the fact that the military, that structure that you served under even just 10 years ago is 5 years ago, or I guess it was 8 years ago you got out, but is far different from what we're seeing now. And so as you look into what's happening right now, which is just, again, an indoctrination of liberal and leftist ideas. And I mean, I can't even believe that I say like that the US military is generally now a woke organization. It's like crazy to say that, but like, what do you see, or how do you feel when you look at the military today in comparison to what you served in just a few years ago?
It's very different, right? So when I was in, the old timers would say things like, "Oh, the old army," and I was in when there was beer vending machines in Panama, right? That was normal in the barracks. That was like, yeah, it's fine, But like, so aside from the left trying to indoctrinate our kids with perverse or normalizing perverse ideas of sexuality, they're also trying to feminize our most masculine institutions, like the military, for example, right? So I'm sure everyone's seen this by now, but the Army's recruiting video, and compare that to the Russians and Chinese, they're probably just laughing at us, right? Or just what, I didn't look at all the rest of them, but what the Marines just posted at the beginning of Gay Pride Month, right? A full metal jacket helmet with rainbow ammo, right? That's complete swing and a miss. Like, the military is not supposed to be for identity politics or social engineering. Its job is to break things, kill people, win wars, and we're not supposed to celebrate special people or special snowflakes or give special treatment to individuals or groups. I mean, I alluded to that in the beginning, where you start off with shaving your head and all wearing the same uniform. And the only difference thing is that you have your name on your uniform, and that's it. You are the same, and you are a machine, right? So no tactical or the tactics of a certain mission or war or something has never been improved because so-and-so likes to sleep with so-and-so, or so-and-so likes to do this after work hours, right? No, the best person for the best job, and the strongest person to lift big things, and the best person to be the sniper, et cetera. I mean, that's what it's about, right? So the military, and I can say from the beginning and even now, right? So we don't see color. There's no, when you're in the higher units or tip of the spear type units, right? There's not even any rank. I mean, there is when it has to be, but it's we're all here for a purpose, and we're all here to kill things and break things. And the left trying to change it. I mean, so every once in a while they do acquiesce, and they's like, oh yeah, well, this is not going to work. Boys and girls are actually different. And like, so the Army's PT test, or the physical fitness test, for example, right? So they were super vocal about this new physical fitness test, right? And it's a gender neutral fitness test, and they were going to put this out. And so finally they put it out, right? But then last year, the Sergeant Major of the Army said, we're going to go back to the gender specific ones because 44% of women are failing compared to 7% of guys. Or let's change it and say only 66 women scored over 500, whereas 32,000 men scored over 500, right? So we need masculine men to do masculine things, right? 120-pound female is usually not able to lift a 200-pound man in kit off the battlefield, right? So there's a reason that men and women are different. The Army is supposed to be, or the military is supposed to be for something. Leave it at that. It's, everyone's seen the meme, right? Like, good times, weak men, et cetera, right? But we have the luxury. We shouldn't, but there's a luxury right now. Not too much is going on. There's always something going on, but now we're playing with the military like it's a little widget, and let's try this, let's try that. Let's let somebody in specifically so they can have transgender surgery. Like, how is that in the best interest of the country? And the military, like, that is not going to win a war. That's not going to build unit cohesion to win a war, right? So it's great that we're, there's all kinds of things that can happen all the time, but it's great that we're in a time of peace that we feel that we can mess with the military, but we shouldn't, and then you need the military, then you've kicked out all the people that can actually cause damage, right? Or they have actually left because they just can't take it anymore. So anyways,
that's actually that last thing you said is one thing that I think has been really heartbreaking, whether it's been, again, forced vaccines for some of them, right, or the identity politics that has now just bled its way into everywhere. It's like we are forcing out the most incredible men and women that desire to serve and protect this country and are willing to put their lives on the lines for complete strangers because they believe that's the right thing to do. And these people are being driven out, and they're being, at times, not everybody, but at times they're being replaced by people because they check certain boxes. And that's just heartbreaking to me. I couldn't imagine, and I know it happens in a lot of other places too, but just being cut off of my dream and my God-given talent, gift, desire, drive, and purpose because somebody else is trying to play God in the midst of it. It's just been horrible to see.
They did something back in, at least the Army did. I'm not sure about the other, when I was still active. I was actually deployed when this came out. So it would have been about 2013 or 14. And that's when the Army said that if you have a tattoo that shows that's visible beyond your PT shirt or a t-shirt. So if you had anything up here or anything beyond here, right? And so who has tattoos that are beyond your sleeve, right? Probably every infantryman, every door kicker, every SEAL, every Ranger, not every, but them, they're going to have your tattoos, right? So now they didn't say we're going to kick you out. They said you just can't advance. You can't go to any schools. You can't get promoted. You can't do this kind of. So essentially ending the career of all the door kickers because, and at the same time, that's when they said transgenders I don't know how to say it, are allowed in the military, right? So it was like this big social engineering project. And I know personally, I know people who careers just drastically changed because of that, or what path they were on. So it's, I don't know the actual, they might've repealed it recently or not or something, but it was there for a while for sure.
Well, and in the end, we all suffer. So that's Absolutely. Rough. Gabe, this was good, man. I mean, I'm so thankful that, that we were introduced so randomly, but not at all. It makes total sense. So thank you for definitely the time today. Super valuable. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that will be really encouraged and blessed by the things that you said. Again, I say, man, thank you for serving this country. It is it's such an honor to spend time with people that do and did, because it's why we are the country that we are. So, man, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I just want to end on one little thought, or based on our last little discussion there. I don't want to end on a sour note about the military, right? Just like America is the greatest country out there, right? Our military is great. I mean, there's so many good people in there, right? Mm-hmm. And just like no matter who is the president or who is in charge, America's always going to do good because of our fighting spirit. And so the military will always do what it needs to do. We're still the best military. And it's still if my boys could join the military today or would want to join the military today, I'd be more than happy to, back them for that. So, I mean, it's great country, great military. We are fortunate. That's the only privilege we have, right? Our privilege is that we are in America. That's our privilege, right? So,
so good, man.
But yeah, so love it. Lastly, about men, right? So young boys, let's strive to raise our young men to seek wisdom, learn from history, stand between good and evil, and follow their calling, and raise our young boys to be good, strong men.
That's good, man. Well, guys, he ended it. That was a great way to end. So as always, if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, we'll make sure to put contact information to Gabe in the show notes. You can reach out to him. You know where to find me. I'm here willing to field anything you got. If you have any great guest ideas for upcoming episodes, you want to have conversations like this, please send them my way. In the meantime, be you, be happy, be authentic. Talk to you soon. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Authentic Conversations. If you are ready to live the life you've dreamed of, I'm here to help. Head to ryanjamesmiller.com/podcast to begin your journey. And if this episode impacted you in any way, pay it forward by sharing it with someone you know. I'm Ryan James Miller, and I'll see you next time on Authentic Conversations.